Good morning. Isn't this a beautiful way to celebrate? All these pictures are just such a reminder. It just made me go back in my mind over all the pets I've ever had and trying to remember all their names and how old I was and when we had them and what they meant. And of course, they mean the world, as you all know who have pets. If you forgot a picture, but you have one on your phone, you might put that up and wave it around. Be sure your phone's turned off, but please share. Well, welcome to All Faith Unitarian Congregation. My name's Diane Cartwright, and I'm going to be leading our service today. And as you know, we're celebrating pets today. And my favorite pet, Doug, is having a birthday today. And I was reminded, speaking of pets, when just saw this quote last night, and I thought it was so appropriate. I thought it would be a nice way to start our celebration of pets. It's from Eckhart Tolle. The vital function that pets fulfill in this world hasn't fully been recognized. They keep millions of people sane. When you pet a dog or listen to a cat purring, thinking may subside for a moment and a space of stillness arises within you, a doorway into being. I love that. Well, here at All Faith, you'll find a diverse and inclusive spiritual community where we welcome people with many beliefs, and you can bring your whole self, your full identity, your questioning mind, and your ever-expansive heart. At All Faith, we have more than one way of experiencing the world and understanding the sacred. And as we affirm every single Sunday, no matter who you are, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, and no matter whom you love, you are always welcome here. Is anyone visiting for the first or second time? Wonderful, welcome. We're so glad you're with us today. And if you'd like to know more about All Faith, or anyone else here wants to know more about All Faith or membership, please see Fran Way, who's back with us today, back there by the membership corner, which is just around the corner to my left in the back. And after our service, you can find out more about what's going on at All Faith. And if you'd rather, you can also look us up on the online at allfaithuu.org. You can see the upcoming events on the back of your order of service. And about the only thing I have to add is there's one correction due to illness. Joan can't lead the client action meeting, so that's going to be canceled. That's Tuesday at 1:30 p.m., Climate Action Team meeting on Zoom. So take note of that and take note of the other announcements as well. And if you would please rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
We'll now do our chalice lighting, and as Emmy Spiller comes forward, a fellow pet lover, to light the chalice, please join together in reciting the words in your order of service. We light the chalice in honor of the animal realm, furred and hoofed, two-legged, four-legged, many-legged, fanged and clawed, gentle and fierce, wild and tame. May we remember that all animals are our relatives, worthy of our care and respect.
Here at All Faiths, we are all family. And one of the things that we do every Sunday is we share our joys, our sorrows, and our gratitude. So at this time, I invite you to come forward if you have a joy, sorrow, or gratitude to share with us. Bill? Bill Simon?
Hi. When I moved down to Florida about 13, 14 years ago and spent my first summer here, I said I'm never going to spend July and August in South Florida. But unfortunately, a sorrow has brought me here. My son has had 2 rounds of brain surgery, and he's got a long road to recovery. So he's in the hospital now and will be moved to rehab, hopefully in the next couple of days, and then be working from there. He's gotten through the first part, but the next part's going to be really tough. So anyway, that's it.
We hold you in our hearts.
We hold them in our healing thoughts and prayers. And the good side is you're back with us. Robert?
Good morning. I'm Tina Noel, and I have a very special joy to share with you. Many of us here are retired educators. I'm a retired middle school teacher. I started out in special needs. I was walking through a local cafe and saw one of my mamas, because I always tried to stay in close contact with my mothers from my students. And I asked her, I said, "Oh, how's Alex?" And he was in my first class, and we got him moved to general education with support. She said, "He's in Korea, he's in E6, and he just applied for warrant officer." And
Wow.
Yes, you got it. You know how I feel.
We're happy to share your joy. Robert?
Good morning, I'm Robert Bennett, and I'm not wearing my patch today, but that's not actually a good thing. The reason is I've got 8 stitches in my eyebrow. I tripped a couple of days ago downtown. It was raining and I was stepping over a puddle and I didn't navigate the sidewalk very well and fell flat on my face, this side of my face, and it knocked me out. This was about 7:30, and I woke up around 9 o'clock in the emergency room. I don't know how long I was on the street. I don't know how long I was in the emergency room. They had taken my earring out to do a MRI before I gained consciousness, and I messed up my rotator cuff in my shoulder, my elbow, my hand. Had blood all over the place and was really sore. Because I was wearing my patch, no more damage happened to my eye. It was protected. So that's the good news. Now, the bad news is that over the last week or so, I've had tremendous pressure in my eye, and it's supposed to be between 10 and 20. It was up to 60, and my doctor was quite concerned about it. She said that's the kind of pressure that can ruin your eye. So she'd given me some medication. I had had a migraine for about a week, and when I went back to her the day after my fall, the pressure was 92. Jeez. And she sent me immediately to Naples to the eye place up there where they could do more tests on me, and they scheduled me for surgery on Monday. They think that my retina may have separated,
Oh my
and
goodness.
there's more gross details that I'll spare you. But fortunately, one of my brothers is going to be taking me and then watching me and then taking me the next day and so forth. But be thinking about me, please. Surgery will be 1 o'clock on Monday. So there you go.
We hold you in our hearts.
We'll be praying for you and hope that everything goes well, and we're glad that someone found you and arranged to get you to the ER. And it's good that there are people who are caring in the world, and I know you have a little trouble with depth perception here, so I'll help you out a little.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I light this candle for my son Paul, who died last Sunday at the age of 44 from Alzheimer's.
Oh my goodness. We hold you in our hearts.
Our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. It's such a shock to lose someone at such a young age.
I'm John Conrad, and I have a joy today. My daughter, Lori Babcock, that many of you know, she graduated yesterday in Colorado Springs with a Master's of Fine Arts.
We're very happy for Laura. I hope we'll see her and Ainsley back with us. We have such a beautiful family. I'm lighting this candle in appreciation of one of the people I call our reliables. We have some people who show up and do what has to be done, and you can count on them. And the one today is Sharon Gray. Sharon, would you stand, please? For many years, Sharon has been conducting the pet shelter collection. We bring food and supplies for pets, and Sharon delivers it to the pet shelters here. She cares for all of us. She's here to help out whenever needed. She's running the camera today. She does whatever has to be done. So Sharon, I'm very grateful for you and all that you do for us, and especially all that you do for the pets. And I'm lighting a candle for all of you who have joys and sorrows in your hearts, and may you go forth and reach out to all those who are homebound, who need help at home, and contact those who are not able to be with us.
I'd like to ask everyone to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let us turn our hearts and our minds to today's service and contemplate our blessings. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. opening words come from Nikita Gill, A Lesson on Love. My dog and I do not speak the same language, yet every day she tells me, I trust you to know when I need to go for a walk. I will let you hold me when you need to, and I will ask you for love when I need it. On the days you are sick, I will lie beside you. I will look for you in rooms when you are not here, and I will greet you with so much joy when you come home. I will guard you when you sleep. I will wag my tail and let you know that everything will be okay on your bad days. And I know that you will do the same on mine. And from this I learned that my dog and I actually speak the same language. After all, the universe is a kindly, ancient thing. It gave love as a mother tongue to every being.
Dreams are nothing more than wishes, and a wish is just a dream, a wish to come true. Ooh. If only I could have a puppy, I call myself so very lucky, just to have some company, to share a cup of tea with me. I'd take my puppy everywhere. La 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 la, I wouldn't care. But we would say us with crowds that sings, no dogs allowed, oh we. I know if you're gonna bite me, what'll loot up, ooh wee. I know he'd never bite me, what'll I do? I could have a friend who'd stick with me until the end, and walk along beside the sea to share a bit of moon with me. I'd take my friend most everywhere. La 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 la, I wouldn't care. But we would stay away from crowds with signs that said no friends allowed, or we'd be so happy to be waddle-a-doo-da-boo. We'd be so happy to be together. But dreams are nothing more than wishes, and a wish is just a dream, a wish to come true. Wah 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 woo, wah 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 wah. Dreams are nothing more than wishes, and a wish is just a dream, a wish to come true, a wish to come true, a wish to come true.
I don't know why, but when you made that wish for a puppy, the first song that came into mind was, how much is that doggy in the window?
I was going to do that one. And I was going to ask you how to do the woo-woo part.
Our reading today, Blessed Are All Living Things by Maureen Killeran. For the blessing of animal companions, we give thanks. For the beautiful ones, those whose fur is silky and whose tails are long, whose feathers are brilliant, or whose voices are splendid, we give thanks. For the frantic ones, the runts and the hungry, who run for a food bowl or a pat as though this is life's last possible gift, we give thanks. For the obnoxious ones, the heads that butt against us as we're trying to sleep, the bodies that refuse to learn discretion as they make digestive gifts, we give thanks. For those who bark and purr and growl and mew, for all those who squeak or squawk or snarl or hiss, we give thanks. For the animals unknown to us, those whose niche in life's web is fragile, whose lives are insecure, For all who care for them and wish them well, we give thanks. Blessed are the animals. Blessed are the creatures who live with us and need our care. Blessed are the mammals and the reptiles and the birds who teach us we are not alone. Blessed are all living things from whom we learn to love. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky.
All creatures of the earth and sky, come, kindred, lift your voices high. Alleluia, alleluia. Bright burning sun with golden beam, soft shining moon with silver gleam. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Swift rushing winds so wild and strong, white clouds that sail in heaven along. Alleluia, alleluia. Fair rising morning praise rejoice. High stars that lead behind the voice. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Cool flowing water, clear and clear, make music for all hearts to hear. Alleluia, alleluia. Dance, flame of fire so strong and bright, and bless us with your warmth and light. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. My father's favorite singer was Patti Page, and I remember that song vividly. How much is that dog? You know, oh God. Oh. Anyway, today we are celebrating our pets and what role they play in the roles of care and receivers and caregivers. The theme this month is We Are Each Other's Keepers, reflected in the theme of our fused glass sculpture, which we admire every Sunday, and which graces our sanctuary. It is also, if I may add a personal note, my 77th birthday. I waited for that. Tomorrow is Bob DeGalbo's birthday. I don't know how old he is, but... 71. Oh, shoot. And to all those Leos out there, I know Wayne is one. Happy birthday. And I can think of no other way to spend the morning, except that perhaps that's a white lie. Actually, I can think of any number of things that would be preferable. Lying on the sand in the Bahamas, sipping a pina colada, for example. But none that is plausible for this fine July morning in Fort Myers, Florida. So that being said, you're stuck with me and my reminiscences of pets I've encountered in my life and what they've required of me, and perhaps more importantly, what they've given back to me in return. Like many of you, I've experienced my share of pets in my 77 years. My family has owned, or allowed itself to think it has owned, an array of dogs, cats, tropical fish, gerbils, white lab rats, snakes, parakeets, You name it, we probably had encounters with it. And it's not only pets that I've interacted with. In Australia, I swam with the dolphins at Monkey Mia. I had a mother kangaroo with a joey in her pouch lick my hand, begging for a treat. I witnessed 2 young Tasmanian devils brawling over scraps, and believe me, that Warner Brothers cartoon about the Tasmanian devil, it's all true. I came up close and personal with fairy penguins, koalas, and platypuses at Kangaroo Island. I whale watched in the bay. Diane even had the pleasure of launching a peregrine falcon from her wrist at a game preserve in the outback. In Great Exuma, the Bahamas, where we had a vacation home for 30 years, Diane and I snorkeled daily, encountering lobsters, squid, sharks, stingrays, manta rays, barracuda, giant grouper, and all manner of reef fish and shellfish. Yeah, and swimming pigs. That wasn't a reference to us. That was to the 4-footed variety. At Shell Point, where we now live, we've encountered alligators, brown and white pelicans, all types of herons, ibises, anhingas, ospreys, and even the occasional iguana. Yes, we've seen all manner of wildlife in the wild where it should be seen. However, we're talking today about the pets we have had and what we have given and received from them. Remember when a veterinarian was someone you hardly ever saw? You took your dog or cat for shots, distemper, and rabies, and the only other time you had occasion to visit was when your pet had an encounter with a car or other animal and required emergency medical attention. Now we have annual shots, meds to ward off fleas and ticks, heartworm preventatives, annual or semi-annual health visits, and even COVID or flu shots. The last time I went to the vet for some treatment or other, not for myself, I was tempted to ask when presented the bill if his wife needed a new Mercedes. And have you seen the cost of purebred pets lately? And designer dogs and cats? I can't help but think that the potential owner is fulfilling a need in himself rather than the dog or cat that he's inclined to give a home to. In my day, back when we walked 3 miles to school barefoot in the snow, uphill both ways, our pets were acquired from a neighbor who had a litter of puppies or cats he wanted to give away for free. If you wanted a pedigreed animal, it was easy to go to a breeder and pay a reasonable price and select your new puppy or kitten. Usually there were papers, but in most cases you went on trust that the mother was a Pomeranian and the father was not a St. Bernard. My brother and I, he was 13 and I was 7, were given permission by our parents to pool our resources, $25 whole, and buy our first purebred dog, a beagle, from a breeder. We named him Mr. Bodie, after a television cowboy, Cheyenne Bodie. For those of you who are in advanced age, you might remember it. Bodie was part of our family for 12 years when his profligate life caught up to him. Every year, it seems, Bodie would disappear on his quest for love and be gone for days. He would usually reappear with scars and wounds inflicted presumably from his exploits around the neighborhood. On the rare occasion that he would be gone for what we considered to be an inordinate amount of time, we would call the local dog pound and inquire if they had an incarcerated lovesick beagle in lockup. More than once, we rescued Bodie in the nick of time from death row. He always greeted us with a wag of his tail and a friendly lick as if to say, "What took you so long?" And, "Oh yeah, what's for dinner?" Bodie definitely had an affinity for the ladies, but he also didn't take his obligations toward our family lightly. As a family dog, he gave comfort when it was needed and received an abundance of love in return. When my Uncle Al suffered a massive heart attack and died unexpectedly on a fishing trip to Canada, my Aunt Bernice, his widow, stayed at our house during her time of mourning, a prolonged period of time because of the circumstances and the location of her husband's death. Mr. Bodie, sensing her need of comfort, never left her side for 3 days except to eat. He even slept beside her bed instead of his usual place in my bed. Another dog whose personality was quite unique was Noel, a basset hound my brother and I bought to be a companion to my aforementioned widowed Aunt Bernice. My aunt ran her own business, a beauty shop located in her home. When her husband died, she immersed herself in work. Noel, so named because she was a Christmas present, quickly took charge of my aunt's life. My aunt pampered and spoiled her, cooked her kidneys and chicken, and took her everywhere with her. Noel would make the rounds among her mistress's clients, receiving pet scratches and treats from the ladies sitting under hair dryers or receiving a perm from one of the beauty operators. One day, my aunt decided she needed a new car and bundled Noel into her old car, and they took off after work, my aunt still wearing her beauty operator's uniform for the Ford dealers. They arrived about half an hour before the dealership was due to close, and my aunt, with Noel in tow, asked us to test drive the shiny new Ford Thunderbird the dealer had just put on the showroom floor. The salesman was understandably not impressed by this woman still in her work uniform and being accompanied by a 40-pound basset hound asking to test drive the most expensive car in his showroom. But he acquiesced, inspected her license, gave her the key, and asked that she not be long because they were due to close shortly. Noel jumped into the passenger seat, sat upright on her tail, and placed her right paw on the armrest just as casually as if she were going for a Sunday drive with her chauffeur. My aunt drove around for a few minutes and returned to the dealership and said to the much relieved salesman, "Noel likes it very much, we'll take it." The salesman, who by this time was convinced he was dealing with a mad woman, said, "I'm afraid we can't do the paperwork to arrange the financing and finalize your trade-in today. Can you come back tomorrow? We're due to close in a few minutes." To which my aunt replied, "I'll just write you a check. I have to open the shop at 7 tomorrow for a perm. I'll write you a check for the new car now and trust you to do the paperwork. I'll come back in after the shop closes tomorrow, but I insist on driving Miss Thunderbird home today, and I'm in a hurry. Noelle hasn't had her dinner." Needless to say, she drove the new car home. Noelle perched in the passenger seat in time for the evening meal. As a postlude to this story, my aunt died about 10 years later, and Diane and I, who were in our first years of married life, inherited Noelle for about the 3 years that were remaining in her life. We lived in a home on a cul-de-sac and had a huge fenced-in backyard, which Noelle adamantly refused to use. She went every day to the front door and insisted to be let out to roam at will through the neighborhood, where she soon endeared herself to all of our neighbors who fed her, offered pets and scratches, and often invited her into their homes for a visit. No fenced-in backyard for her. She was the queen of the neighborhood and would not possibly deign to be separated from her adoring subjects. The next pet that came into our lives was Dammy, D-A-M-I, a totally white, blue-eyed Chicago alley cat, as my father referred to him. My mother, in a fit of momentary weakness, adopted Dammy, which was short for "Damn it, I said I wasn't going to get another cat," from my cousin's neighbor in Harlington Heights, Illinois. We had gone to their home for a visit, and he'd come home with a cat. This was in 1961. Fast forward to my parents' move to the suburbs, their retirement to a home in Arkansas, my marriage to Diane in 1972, and my mother's decision to give Dammy to Diane and me since we just lost Noelle. Dammy became an indoor cat living with us through several moves and died of kidney failure in 1988 at the age of 27. after defying a vet's prediction of, at most, he has 2 months when he was 22. He frustrated us by forming an attachment to one brand of cat food, and after we had naively bought a case of it, deciding he couldn't stand the stuff, and couldn't he just have something else instead? He repeated this act until we were at wits and our wallets' ends, but one thing he never turned up his nose at was raw hamburger. He could smell it whenever he was in the house and would come running and wrap his body around my legs, purring until I formed little balls of it for him to lap up eagerly. Since 1988, we've moved several times, retired from teaching, discovered a new life and new friends in Florida, and yes, had more pets. Franny and Zoe, 2 calico cats, one skinny and one fat, lived with us, entertained us for 18 years, and allowed us to think it was they that were doing us a favor. When we moved to Orange River, it was with Sadie and Smokey, pictured here. Our 2 Havanese Velcro dogs, who allowed us to take them onto the pier where they watched and sometimes barked at the manatees, chased possums, raccoons, and armadillos around the yard to protect us from invasion, endured flights to the Bahamas where Smokey was spooked by the waves and Sadie was frozen in place whenever she stepped on a sandbar and refused to move. When Smokey died, Sadie decided she was indispensable to us and we to her, and were forever grateful to all faiths that she was welcomed and fawned over whenever we brought her to services. She felt just as at home here as at Shell Point. Sadie's death has left a giant hole in our hearts and our lives, but that void is quickly filled with the memories of pets past and of the joy that they brought into our lives. Of Mr. Bodie, of Noelle, of Dammy, of Franny and Zoe, of Smokey and Sadie, and also other pets, Peanut, Greta, Maggie, Tracer, Queenie, Solo, and oh, so many more, who graced and enriched our lives and indeed made us whole. We would be remiss if we didn't recognize all of you, the congregants, who have taken animals into their homes and made them an integral part of their lives. Somehow, some we know and some we hope to hear more about. Carlos has Bach and Mozart, who've undoubtedly taken over his life. Regina had Mittens and now has Gracie, who, though she's older than she originally had been told, loves her nonetheless for her years and her long-lost affinity for playing with dogs. Joyce lost Johnny recently, whom she had requested from her late husband Hanif in lieu of an engagement ring, and is now rising every morning to walk Bella, who's here. Bob and Fran have Winston running their lives. Minka has Annalie wrapped around her fluffy paws. Chris and Marcia have Tad, and you'll have to ask them what the initials stand for. John Conrad has to have the approval and presence of BB whenever he is on a Zoom call. And of course, Sharon is our resident madam, looking over a cat house filled with purring felines in need of care. And let's not forget our unconventional animal lovers, or should I say our lovers of unconventional animals. The Spillers have opened their home and their lives to chickens, bunnies, and who knows what else. Dottie Mayo once sought out a new seashell from our Bahamian collection to serve as a replacement home for a smaller shell that her hermit crab had outgrown. But seriously, you probably already know the statistics. We don't open our homes to a menagerie of pets because we're altruistic. Pets enrich our lives. People with pets live longer and more satisfying lives than those without pets. How else can you explain the existence of service animals? What about the effects on patients, adults, or children whose eyes light up when they're visited by a therapy dog in the hospital? My dentist has a resident dog who'll come and comfort nervous patients in the dentist chair. We know of several nursing homes whose halls are populated by welcoming, roaming, furry, four-legged friends. Try saying that fast, Steve. Welcoming, roaming, furry, four-footed, well, anyway. Diane ran across a poem recently which is entitled It's Just a Dog. And we thought that it made the point of our interdependence on our pets rather more forcefully than we ever could. I'd like her to read it now.
It's Just a Dog. It's by Richard A. Bybee. From time to time, people tell me, relax, it's just a dog. Or, it's a lot of money just for a dog. They don't understand the distance traveled, the time invested, or the costs incurred by just a dog. Some of my proudest moments happened with just a dog. Many hours passed being my only company, just a dog, but not for a single moment I felt despised. Some of my saddest moments were for just a dog. And on those gray days, the gentle touch of just a dog gave me the comfort and reason to spend the day. If you also think it's just a dog, then you'll probably understand phrases like just a friend, just a sunrise, just a promise. Only a dog brings into my life the very essence of friendship, trust, and pure and unbridled joy. Only a dog brings the compassion and patience that makes me a better person. For just a dog, I'm getting up early, going for long walks, and looking forward to the future. So for me, and for people like me, it's not just a dog, but an embodiment of all the hopes and dreams of the future, the memories of the past, and the absolute joy of the moment. Only a dog brings good in me and diverts my thoughts away from me and the daily worries. I hope one day you can understand that it's not just a dog, but what gives me humanity and prevents me from being just a human. So the next time you hear the phrase just a dog, you smile because you just don't understand.
So now we shouldn't delude ourselves that we are doing these sad-eyed fur balls or feathered balls or even scaled balls a favor by allowing them into our lives. They know the score. They have us wrapped around their little paws. We need them as much as they need us. It's a symbiotic relationship that began when the first wolf curled up by the fire to warm itself and its new human friend, thereby cementing a bond that has become an all-encompassing statement of codependence that has existed through the ages. The love that we give to our pets comes back to us in so many uncounted ways, and indeed is the basis for the understanding between us that human and animal, we are all each other's keepers. May it be so. Instead of a joke, I'd like to tell you a little bit about a comic strip, Pickles, which appears in the news press. Some of you may know of it. The strip is about an elderly couple, Earl and Opal, who share their lives with a cat and a dog. Instead of a joke, I'll review a recent strip. On a Monday strip featuring Earl opened the door to the bathroom only to find the cat perched on the toilet, doing her business. When questioned, Opal remarked that Muffin had learned a new trick. On Tuesday, Earl went into the bathroom, looked down, and returned to the living room and asked Opal when she was planning to teach Muffin to flush. On Wednesday, Opal and Earl were sitting in the living room reading the paper when Muffin strode by, dripping wet, her fur totally drenched. Opal turned to Earl and said, "I see you forgot to put the toilet seat down again." The morning offering will now be taken.
Are you blind when you're bored? Can you see in the dark? Can you look at a king? Would you sit on his throne? Can you say of your bite that it's worse than your bark? Are you cock of the walk or just walking alone? Because jellicle cats and jellicles do, jellicles do and jellicles would, jellicles would and jellicles can, jellicles can and jellicles do, jellicles can and jellicles do. When you fall on your head, do you land on your feet? Are you tense when you sense there's a storm in the air? Can you find your way blind when you're lost in the street? Do you know how to go to the heaviside layer? Because jellicles can and jellicles do, jellicles do and jellicles can, jellicles can and jellicles do, jellicles can and jellicles can, jellicles can and jellicles do. Can you ride on a broomstick to places far distant? Familiar with candle, with book, and with flame? Were you Whitenson's friend, the Pied Piper's assistant? Have you been an alumnus of heaven or hell? Are you mean like the Mings? Are you lean like the Slings? Are you keen to be seen when you're smelling a rat? Were you there when the pharaohs commissioned the Sphinx? Well, if you were, then you are a jellicle cat. Jellicle cats and jellicle cats, jellicle songs for 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 jellicle cats. Jellicle songs for jellicle cats, jellicle songs for jellicle swing, jellicle sharps and jellicle flats, jellicle songs for jellicle sings, jellicle songs for jellicle cats, 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 jellicle songs for jellicle cats. Meow.
Our closing words come from Thomas Rhodes, Blessing of the Animals. You, birds of the air, hawk, sparrow, and laughing jay, you embody freedom itself, delight us with your song, around us with feats of migration, grant us your perspective, for too often our horizon is limited and we are blind to the full results of our actions. You, worms of the earth, ants, beetles, spiders, and centipedes, you are the essential but oft-forgotten strand in nature's web. Through you, the cycle is complete. Through you, new life arises from old. Remind us of our humility. For the wheel of life does not turn around us. We are not the axle, but merely spokes, no less than unseen, unknown, and shunned companions such as yourselves. You, dearest companions in our lives, dogs and cats, hamsters and goldfish, you who are with us today, and you who will always be present in our memories. You have enriched our lives in so many ways, endured our shortcomings with calm acceptance, taught us something of our humanity, taught us how to love. May we hold you in our hearts throughout the days of our lives.
And feel free to sing along with the chorus parts when we sing, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. Feel free to sing along. On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all of life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There were sands and hills and rings. The first thing I met was a fly and a buzz and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 la. After 2 days in the desert sun, my skin began to turn red. After 3 days in the desert fun, I was looking at a riverbed. And the story is told of a river that's flowed that made me think it was red. You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 la. After 9 days, I let the horse run free, 'cause the desert had turned to sea. There were plants and birds and rocks and things, and sands and hills and rings. The ocean is a desert with a life underground, and the perfect the skies above. Under the cities lies a heart made of ground, but the humans will give no love. You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 la
We thank Doug for his delightful message today, and of course Carlos for the always appropriate music. Well, how he does this, I don't know. Sharon on camera, Ed Elrod on sound, Joyce Schaefer for our flowers, Frank Geltner for hospitality and our friendly greeters. And of course, it's good to be connected any way we can. So we do encourage you today to join us later, which I'll come back to. But first, we're going to extinguish our chalice, so I'll ask Emmy to come back. And as we extinguish the flame, please give the closing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. And Michelle's busily getting our ice cream all set up. And we have some cake here. Doug and I brought a cake for his birthday, but mostly for the animals, as you'll see when you see the cake. And join us for cake, ice cream, coffee, conversation. And remember, if you have a picture on your phone and you want to share a picture of your animal, this will be a good time. So see us in the social hall. Have a great day.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it was wonderful.
Oh,
It was wonderful.
It was fun. It was fun to
And you still have a
reminisce.